Why does a good-hearted man slowly become distant, silent, and hard to read? Why does someone who once trusted easily now keep his guard up all the time? And why do the kindest men often become the coldest over time? The answer is uncomfortable, but powerful. A man is not born cold. He becomes cold after life repeatedly teaches him lessons he never asked to learn. And if you stay until the end of this video, you will understand how to turn your pain into unbreakable strength instead of silent suffering, and how to build a mindset that protects you without killing your humanity. Every man begins with hope. He believes effort brings results. He believes loyalty will be returned. He believes love will be respected. In the beginning, he trusts easily. He gives chances. He forgives quickly. He believes people mean what they say, but life rarely rewards innocence. Instead, life tests it. Friends disappoint. Relationships fall apart. Hard work gets ignored. Loyalty is betrayed. Promises get broken. Slowly, the realization begins to sink in: the world does not operate on fairness. It operates on strength, awareness, and emotional control. At first, the pain confuses him. He asks, "Why me?" He replays conversations in his head. He wonders what he did wrong. He tries harder. He gives more. He becomes more patient, more understanding, more forgiving. But instead of appreciation, he often receives more disappointment. This is where the transformation quietly starts, not in anger, not in revenge, but in exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion changes a man more than rage ever could. A man becomes cold when he realizes that being good does not protect him from being hurt. That effort does not guarantee loyalty. That love does not guarantee respect. And that people often take kindness as weakness. This realization hits slowly, then all at once. The moment arrives when he stops explaining himself, stops chasing people, stops trying to convince others of his worth. Something inside him becomes quieter, more careful, more watchful. Pain becomes his teacher. Every betrayal sharpens his awareness. Every failure strengthens his resilience. Every disappointment removes illusions. He begins to understand that survival is not about being liked. It is about being strong enough to stand alone when necessary. The world forces him to grow emotional armor, not because he wants to, but because he needs to. This does not mean he stops feeling. In fact, he feels deeply, but he learns that showing every emotion invites manipulation. So he starts protecting his inner world. He shares less, trusts less, observes more. He realizes that not everyone deserves access to his time, energy, or vulnerability. And in this process, people around him begin to say, "You've changed." They don't realize that change was forced by experience, not choice. But here is the truth many never understand: becoming cold is not about losing your heart. It is about learning how to guard it. It is about understanding that strength is built through hardship, not comfort. The pain you survive becomes the foundation of the man you become. And those who learn from pain instead of being destroyed by it gain a quiet power that others cannot easily shake. By the end of this journey, you will see how coldness, when controlled, becomes clarity, how distance becomes wisdom, and how emotional strength becomes the shield that allows a man to move through life without being broken by it again. And if you stay with this message until the end, you will walk away with a mental framework that turns every setback into strength and every loss into personal power. After enough disappointment, something shifts inside a man. The chasing slows down, the explaining stops, and one day, almost without noticing, he stops expecting people to show up the way he once did for them. This moment is quiet, but it changes everything, because expectations are the root of many disappointments. And when expectations disappear, emotional freedom begins. At first, letting go of expectations feels lonely. He notices who stops calling when he stops reaching out. He sees how many relationships existed only because he was the one making all the effort. The silence becomes uncomfortable, but also revealing. Reality becomes clear. Not everyone who smiles with you stands with you. Not everyone who promises loyalty can offer it. And not everyone deserves unlimited access to your time and energy. This realization hurts, but it also strengthens him. He begins to understand that peace comes from self-reliance, not from depending on others. Instead of looking outward for validation, he starts looking inward for stability. Approval matters less. Opinions lose their power. He no longer feels the need to prove himself in every room. His confidence becomes quieter but stronger. A powerful change happens when a man stops expecting understanding from everyone around him. He realizes that most people see life only from their own perspective. They may never fully understand his struggles, sacrifices, or battles. And that's okay. He stops wasting energy trying to make everyone see his worth. Instead, he focuses on building a life that speaks for itself. Complaints slowly disappear. Drama loses its attraction. Arguments feel pointless. Silence becomes more valuable than winning conversations. Observation replaces reaction. He listens more than he speaks. He watches how people behave when things don't go their way. He notices who respects boundaries and who tries to cross them. Awareness replaces blind trust. This emotional distance is often misunderstood. People may say he has become cold or detached. But what actually changed is his tolerance for unnecessary pain. He no longer invests deeply in people who show little care in return. He learns that protecting his peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Energy becomes precious, and he chooses carefully where to spend it. He also realizes that dependence creates vulnerability. Depending on others for happiness, motivation, or emotional security gives them control over his state of mind. And control in the wrong hands leads to suffering. So he starts building independence. He learns to enjoy his own company. He finds comfort in solitude instead of fearing it. Being alone no longer feels like punishment, it feels like freedom. The man who once chased connection now values quality over quantity. A few loyal people become more important than many shallow relationships. Trust becomes earned, not freely given. And while his circle becomes smaller, his inner strength grows larger. This stage is not about pushing everyone away. It is about understanding that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Emotional distance becomes a shield, not a wall. It protects without completely isolating. And through this process, a man begins to feel lighter, calmer, and more in control. Because when expectations disappear, disappointment loses its power. And when disappointment loses its power, strength quietly takes its place. As expectations fade and emotional distance grows, a man begins to notice something even more powerful. Most of his past suffering did not come only from what happened to him, but from how he reacted to it. The anger, the overthinking, the sleepless nights replaying arguments, the urge to respond, to defend, to prove himself. These reactions drained his energy more than the situations themselves. And this realization marks the beginning of emotional discipline. A strong man is not someone who never feels anger or pain. He feels everything. The difference is that he learns not to become a prisoner of those emotions. He understands that losing control only gives power to the very situations or people trying to disturb his peace. And so, slowly, he begins training himself to pause instead of reacting. At first, this discipline feels unnatural. When disrespected, the instinct is to react immediately. When misunderstood, the instinct is to argue. When hurt, the instinct is to strike back with words or actions. But experience teaches him that emotional reactions often create consequences worse than the original problem. One angry message ruins relationships. One impulsive decision destroys opportunities. One uncontrolled moment creates regret that lasts years. So he learns the power of restraint. Silence becomes a strategy. Walking away becomes strength, not weakness. He begins choosing peace over ego battles. He realizes that not every challenge deserves a response. Not every insult deserves attention. Some battles are won simply by refusing to participate. Over time, calmness becomes his advantage. When others panic, he stays composed. When others shout, he listens. When chaos surrounds him, he thinks clearly. This emotional control changes how people see him. Those who once tried to provoke him lose interest when they realize he cannot be easily manipulated. Emotional discipline makes him harder to control, harder to disturb, and harder to defeat. Pain still visits, but his response changes. Instead of collapsing under pressure, he uses hardship as training. Failure becomes feedback. Rejection becomes redirection. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he begins asking, "What is this teaching me?" This shift turns every setback into a lesson rather than a wound. He also understands that emotions are temporary, but decisions made in emotional moments can be permanent. So he creates distance between feeling and action. He gives himself time to cool down, to think, to analyze. In that space between emotion and response, strength is built. Discipline grows in silence, not in noise. The man who once reacted to everything now chooses carefully where to invest his emotions. He saves his energy for goals, growth, and self-improvement. He becomes less concerned with proving others wrong and more focused on proving himself right through action and results. This emotional discipline does not make him heartless. It makes him stable, reliable, grounded. People begin to trust his calm presence. Opportunities begin to open because he no longer sabotages himself through uncontrolled reactions. His mind becomes clearer. His decisions become sharper. And in mastering his emotions, he discovers a powerful truth: controlling the world is impossible, but controlling himself changes everything. As emotional discipline strengthens, another transformation begins to take shape. A man starts seeing his own worth more clearly. He realizes that much of his past pain came from trying to be accepted by people who never truly valued him. He bent his boundaries to fit into places where he was barely respected. He stayed in situations that drained him simply to avoid being alone. But discipline brings clarity, and clarity brings self-respect. Slowly, he stops begging for attention, understanding, or affection. He no longer feels the need to chase people who show little effort in return. The desire to be liked by everyone fades away. Instead, a new priority emerges: respect for himself. And once this standard rises, many old relationships begin to fall away naturally. This change is not loud. It does not come with arguments or dramatic exits. It shows itself in small decisions. He says no without guilt. He walks away from conversations that feel disrespectful. He distances himself from people who constantly criticize or belittle him. He no longer tolerates behavior that damages his peace. And the surprising part is that the more he respects himself, the more others begin to respect him too. Loneliness may visit during this stage. When he stops accepting fake friendships and unhealthy relationships, his circle becomes smaller. Some nights feel quiet. Some days feel isolating. But he begins to understand something important: loneliness is far less painful than constantly feeling unappreciated in the wrong company. Peace becomes more valuable than constant noise. He also learns that respect cannot be negotiated or begged for. It is earned through actions and reinforced through boundaries. When people realize he will walk away from disrespect, their behavior changes. And if it does not change, he now has the strength to leave without hesitation. Walking away no longer feels like defeat. It feels like self-preservation. In the past, he might have tolerated insults, excuses, or broken promises just to keep relationships alive. Now, he understands that staying in situations where he is undervalued slowly destroys confidence. So he chooses distance over disrespect, silence over arguments, departure over humiliation. This stage also teaches him to prioritize his own growth. Instead of sacrificing his time and energy trying to fix others, he invests in improving himself. Physical health, mental strength, financial stability, and personal goals become more important than pleasing everyone around him. He begins building a life he is proud of rather than waiting for approval. As his standards rise, so does the quality of people around him. Those who remain are loyal, respectful, and supportive. The relationships that survive this transformation are stronger because they are built on mutual respect rather than convenience or dependence. A powerful calm enters his life. He no longer feels desperate to hold on to anyone. He understands that the right people will stay and the wrong ones will leave. And instead of fearing loss, he now welcomes clarity. Because in choosing self-respect over acceptance, a man does not become selfish. He becomes strong enough to protect his peace, his dignity, and his future, with self-respect firmly in place. The final transformation becomes clear. The man who once feared becoming cold now understands the difference between being heartless and being strong. He realizes that strength is not about shutting down emotions or pushing the world away. It is about learning when to open his heart and when to protect it. The journey was never about losing his humanity. It was about gaining control over it. People often misunderstand this stage. They see a calm, distant man and assume he no longer cares. But the truth is the opposite. He cares deeply, but he chooses carefully. He no longer gives unlimited chances to those who repeatedly hurt him. He no longer sacrifices his peace to keep others comfortable. Compassion remains, but it is guided by wisdom now, not blind trust. A strong man learns that kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction, so he builds balance. He helps others, but not at the cost of himself. He listens, but he no longer absorbs everyone's emotional burdens. He supports, but he refuses to be used. His heart is still alive, but it is no longer exposed to every passing storm. This balance brings a powerful sense of peace. Drama loses its attraction completely. Chaos feels exhausting rather than exciting. He prefers stability, growth, and meaningful progress. He no longer needs constant validation or attention because his confidence comes from within. He measures success by personal growth, not by approval or applause. Another quiet strength appears: patience. He understands that real success takes time. Real respect takes consistency. Real change takes discipline. Instead of rushing results, he focuses on steady improvement. Every day becomes an opportunity to become slightly stronger, slightly wiser, slightly more focused than before. He also becomes more selective about where he invests his energy. Time is no longer wasted on arguments, gossip, or pointless competition. His attention shifts toward building his future, strengthening his mind, and protecting his mental peace. Goals become clearer. Distractions become easier to ignore. Purpose replaces confusion. Yet despite this cold exterior others sometimes see, those closest to him know the truth. Loyalty still matters to him. Love still matters. Friendship still matters. But now, these things must be mutual. Respect must flow both ways. Effort must be shared. He understands that relationships thrive when both sides contribute, not when one person constantly sacrifices. This final stage is not about becoming unreachable or emotionally numb. It is about becoming unshakable. Problems still come. People still disappoint. Life still throws unexpected challenges. But now he faces them with calm confidence. He adapts instead of breaking. He learns instead of collapsing. And in the end, the coldness people notice is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the quiet confidence of a man who survived disappointment, learned from pain, built discipline, and chose self-respect over approval. A man who understands that true strength is not loud or aggressive. It is calm, controlled, and steady, because the strongest men are not those who feel nothing. They are the ones who feel everything, yet still move forward with purpose, dignity, and control.